Rev up your engine! Here we have a 2001 Toyota Celica with 360,000 miles on it. Check it out, it's got more than my Celica has on it. And I know some people are gonna say, Scotty, you're a hypocrite. You said don't buy those new Celicas because they were cheaper made and they have problems, but not this one, and it's for one main reason. As we see under the hood, it's the engine. As you can see here, this is the important thing you must check out. It is a 1ZZFE engine. Now it puts out a respectable 148 horsepower for a small light car. A lot of the guys that race them, they want the 2ZZ engine because it puts out 180 horsepower. That's a big mistake. That is the Yamaha design engine. I have never seen one of these modern Celicas 2000 on that had the 2ZZ engine that wasn't on a second or third or even fourth engine. They had problems. Not this one, because it's the smaller engine with less horsepower. I'm not making it up, there's the mileage, and his father was the original owner, so I know it's real. We'll start it up with the brake on. Starts right up. Okay, all that mileage, what does it sound like? Sounds pretty good. You can hear a little valve rolling, but I mean, with all that mileage on it, now you can see it's still pretty quiet. Well, that's because this is the Toyota designed and built engine. Theoretically, you're supposed to adjust the valves. The overhead cams go on stainless steel shims that open and close the valves. So to adjust this royal pain, you got to measure them. If they're off, you got to take the engine apart. Then you got to measure the old shims and make them that much bigger so they fill the clearance. Giant pain. But, okay, 360,000 miles. These have never been adjusted. Like I said, his father's the original owner. Still runs fine, and it's not out of clearance. Those crazy stainless steel shims, boy, Toyota knows how to make stainless steel shims. They last. The Ford Celica's never been touched either, and it still has the original stainless steel shims. You got an engine with this many miles and it sounds that good, that shows you that they're building them right. But like I said, if you bought that 2ZZ engine, they had problems with oil scavenging. You take a corner too fast, the oil pump would suck air in, would blow the engines up. I saw so many blown engines in those things. This 1ZZ engine is a better all-around engine. Yeah, it's not as fast as the 2ZZ, but the 2ZZ is slow as can be until you get it up to about 4,500 RPM, then it takes off. So not only did it have a bad design where the oil pump scavenged, the guys had to race them high to get all those 180 horsepowers, and they just blew up engines by over-revving them. This soldier got it from his father for a whole $1,000, and unfortunately it came from Chicago, so it's got a little rust here and a little here. That's Chicago for you. And the hubcaps are gone. But when he gets a house, he's gonna park it in the garage and start fixing it up. These can easily go 500,000 miles. But you might say, hey, Scotty, if it's so good, how come they don't make them anymore? Well, that has to do with production quality overall. Celicas with the old body style, they cost a lot more. When they came out with the new body style, they were thousands of dollars cheaper than the old body style. They are a little thinner and lighter, but of course that makes them go faster. The main flaw was that 2ZZ engine. Unless you wanted to fix one up, rebuild the engine, and race around in it and then fix it when it breaks again. These, all that mileage, obviously it's dependable. 360,000 miles. Look how smooth it is. You are gonna hear a few creaks because this came from Chicago, the land of rust. And so all the bushings are gonna be dried from the salt and there's little rusty parts. But I got my hands off the wheel, it still tracks perfectly fine. And as we corner around, these things still are a lot of fun to drive. Even though this is an automatic, I'd rather have a standard. Hey, but beggars can't be choosers. He got it from his father for $1,000. So if he ever wants to convert it to a standard, he could do it if he wanted to. And yeah, the check engine light's on. We're gonna check that out later. Now we'll come to our little test station over here. It's starting now. Feel that smooth shift with all this mileage on it. The Japanese know what they're doing. How many cars with 360,000 miles are gonna go like this when you step on it? They don't make any odd noises, and when you take your foot off, they smoothly shift back up in gear. And so here we are back to square one. Does the gear shift shake? No, it doesn't. It still runs good. But it does have the check engine light, so we're gonna check that out. So here we go with the big computer. Put it all out, Celica with a 1FA. 2001. Here comes the magic, the smart scan. Now this is an old car. It's 20 years old. So it's not going to have all the bells and whistles of a modern one, but there's still a lot of information we can get out of this. Now we know the check engine light's on. The only code is in the ECM. So oxygen sensor heater, bank 1, sensor 1. Oxygen sensor heater, bank 1, sensor 2. All right. Now we don't care about that at all here in Tennessee for one reason. What happens is the heater circuits of the oxygen sensors burn out over time. The genius engineers found that, the cars pollute a little bit too much the first minute or two of operating. So when you start it up, there's a little heater core, like a miniature hairdryer, inside each oxygen sensor. These have obviously burned out. They burn out over time. If you replaced it, the check engine light would go out. You'd have to change them both, and they're not cheap. But it wouldn't run any different than it's running. And since they don't do emissions testing here in Tennessee, most guys will just leave it. They don't care. Let's look at the data stream here. See what kind of shape it's in. It's an old car. Alright, it's got 82 points of data, so we'll look at those. If you remember the data I did on a Dodge late model 4-year-old Dodge the other day, that had 380 points of data, but still 82. It gives you some information. So we'll start scrolling through to see if anything is odd. Everything's blue and good so far, and this is what we want to see. No misfires at all. I can tell that it's not misfiring, but it's never misfired. It would have any history involved in it. The ignition advance is normal and stable. Those are fuel injectors. And for a car with 360,000 miles on it, not bad. The fuel trim is 99.16%. That's pretty close to 100. With all that mileage, to be that tiny bit off, I wouldn't complain. Hey, I'm 67, soon to be 68. I'm probably operating at about 60% efficiency now, not 99.16%. Here's another example how good it is. The total fuel trim on number 1 is only 1%. I've seen brand new Chryslers that were more than that. Once you get to 8 or 10, you'll feel it. If it gets to 20, 25, it'll trip a check engine light code, but that many miles and it's only off 1%. And in this case, it's only adding 1.01%. It probably needs the fuel injectors cleaned. It's got that many miles on it. They will get dirty and not spray perfectly cone-shaped spray anymore. Okay, so you got a car with 360,000 miles that's running at basically 99% efficiency. What's to not like there? It's an automatic, but you saw how smoothly that thing shifts under full load. The power windows still work. But yes, Toyota did go wrong with the Celicas. They put that 180 horsepower engine in a ton of them. My Celica isn't a race car. It's basically a Toyota Corolla with a different body and suspension. But it's no race car. Well, they did make the last model Celicas lighter. They're a lot cheaper to make. They were thousands less than the 99 Celicas were. But when they put that engine in, they got such a bad reputation. And even then, they couldn't compete with real sports cars that were putting out 250, 300, 400 horsepower. They went down the wrong road. You could find one of these that's got the 1ZZ engine in it. You can have a lot of fun on the cheap. They're still reliable Toyotas. They're fun to drive, but they're not race cars. At the same time, the Toyota 86 that were the Subarus, they didn't make them, they just bought them from Subarus. They're not race cars either. That was kind of the replacement of these, and they're not race cars either. I'm kind of disappointed when I get it. I'm like, gee, paid all that money for that new car, doesn't seem all that fast to me. You can pick them up cheap. Just take my advice. You see it's got that 2ZZ engine designed by Yamaha? Run away, unless you want an expensive money pit as the engine blows. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Kowski says, Scotty, I got Honda 2007. The AC doesn't work. What can I do? Well, go to the Scotty Kilmer channel. Watch my myriad, which means very many, videos on air conditioner repair and try them yourself. The first thing I would say would be just go to an auto parts store and get one of those refill cans for refrigerant that has the gauge and just hook it up. And look at the gauge. And if it's running and the gauge is like 10, 15 pounds, it's low on refrigerant. And you can read the directions on the can and fill it up with refrigerant. It's not that hard to do. It could get a lot more complex, but it's a Honda. They all lose refrigerant over time. And once they get below about 50, 60% full and they leak out that much, the compressor switch will turn them off and the compressor won't come on. It won't blow cold anymore. Spray. It's just low on refrigerant. That's the most common thing with Hondas. It happens all the time. They just lose refrigerant over time. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.